My name's Richard, and you are listening to We're Not Wizards. This is a Friends of the Show episode, or Frenemies, depending on which way we're going to play it tonight. And there is somebody who is I've been wanting to speak to for an awful long time, and this is quite exciting. This episode is called When Non-Magic Funny-Shaped Worlds Collide. And I know why it's called that, and you will know why it's called that. Because joining me this evening is a gentleman by the name of Andy Lewis. So hello, Andy.
Hello, Richard.
Now,
How you doing?
I'm very, very good. We've been talking on and off for some time. And
we have, actually, yeah. And I'm actually, it's really good to get on, actually, because you and I have been talking about you either coming on ours or me coming on yours for months now. So it's actually nice to actually finally get it done.
Yeah, I know. I've been waiting for so long, and we've probably we're just going to kind of talk, just free form, and just kind of see what happens. Now, for the people who are listening for the first time at home, the reason that we do this is quite simply because there are not enough podcasts about board games. I've checked. There's only two. There's us. And there's Polyhedron Collider.
Absolutely. I mean, the rest just don't count.
They're not worth the effort. I've never even seen them. I mean, I've done an extensive Google search on podcasts about board games, and none at all.
It's almost like a Google whack with two entries. That's what it is.
And the other reason, and I think Andy covered it already, is that we're going to do this is quite simply because it was about flipping time that you and me had a good old chat about cardboard. To be perfectly honest, because there's been a lot of secret DMs through Twitter and kind of back and throws over Twitter and other places on Facebook, and I've been gently stalking to the point that Steve sent me a message today, Steve Tudor, who's the head of Polyhedron Collider, and it was quite simply, you get him for one episode, and he left and he left it at that. And then the next message he sent was, cardboard is very heavy, isn't it? And then that was it. So I don't know whether
Steve's got a horrible dark side. You don't see it on the podcast. You know, he keeps us in shape, so we've got to behave ourselves.
Yeah, I'm just worried about if he listens to this, he's going to be pressing the electric shock button. And
he's put a collar on me already. That's it. I can't go. He's already said I've escaped the pen for the evening. I think he's going to be chasing me down after this.
He actually said that. I've let him escape the pen for the evening. I was just like wondering what's going on. Is this some kind of like, you're kept in a room and let out to play board games and then you're put back in your room again kind of
That's
thing?
pretty much it. It's seriously, there's a keypad on my door. I can't get out. It's like quarantine. Andy, we're playing board games.
That's just so wrong, but potentially so true. For, as I say, I mentioned it already, but for people that aren't aware of where you're from, do you want to jump in and explain to good folks at home what Polyhedron Collider is, basically?
Yeah. It's I say blog, but it's a website. Steve started it, Steve Tudor, 5 years ago or so, because of his sort of major interest in board games. I mean, much like yourself, I think he was just sort of fed up of either not seeing enough good content, and he started up Polyhedron Collider because of that, and it's sort of grown. He's gone to lots and lots of conventions over the years and grown his presence in the industry. In a very positive way, I mean, he'll go to pretty much every event now, and people will recognise him. They know who he is.
Well, they'll recognise him now because he's been on video.
Absolutely, no, I know. I saw. Yes, he snuck out a video without telling me the other day. I was like, oh, okay, it's like that, is it? Is it Tudor? Right, okay.
Yeah.
But he's been doing that for, I think it's 5 years. And it got to the point, a little over 12 months ago, he'd been chucking around the idea of a podcast for quite a while. So he approached myself and John, knowing that John had been playing board games, and I'd sort of recently got back into them after a bit of a hiatus, which I can sort of talk about later.
Yeah.
And he said, right, do you guys fancy it? Because he'd been talking to his wife Amanda about it, and I think between sort of within the friends group, I think it was fairly mutually agreed that between the three of us, because we're quite different personalities, we've got different tastes, that the three of us would probably make quite a good team. And I'd like to think we have, because we all have different likes, dislikes, personalities. I don't stop talking, John's sort of quiet and reins us back in.
John just jumps in and goes, "I like Talisman," and
he does.
And then he's off. And then he's off again.
He's been trying to get me to play. Actually, the last couple of months, he's actually gone to one of his friends who I do know, and then I think they've come to visit him, and both times I've ended up playing Talisman. He's like, "Andy, you up for this?" I'm like, "Well, no, I've broken my leg for the night or something."
I always kind of wondered, like when he's not been able to make the episode, if you've not got kind of like emergency John. And all it is just of a couple of like key lines, like "I like Talisman," and "When can we play Talisman?" "I'm sad about Talisman." "I'm happy Talisman is potentially getting reprinted." And you could just mix them into the... Yeah, no, I kind of heard that. And the first thing I thought
like a little sort of a voice board, like one of those sort of old keyboards of yesteryear. You press a button and it's John's voice.
You get the ones on your phone that you press, kind of thing, and you just kind of, oh, there's a board game kind of thing, and you just keep pressing the buttons, and you just bring them in as they go. I must admit, when I heard the news that Talisman was potentially coming back again, there was a part of me that thought, I could just imagine John's face kind of reading this and going, and he's beaming from ear to ear.
Well, he's got most of, if not all of the Talisman expansions, as far as I know. As I say, I've not actually played it yet, and I really should, because even my good lady's sort of bullying me into it and say, "Well, you can't complain unless you've played it." And that's where she's got a point. Yeah. So I do intend to play it probably at some point this year, because I should know my enemy and all that. Although I'm quite proud of the fact that I haven't actually played it. So I'm the stubborn side of me saying, no, keep it like that. That way you'll never be exposed to it, and it'll never ruin your life. But there are a lot of people out there that like it, so I'm sure it can't be that bad.
I mean, are there kind of core... I mean, we'll talk about your past in a minute, but just off the back of that, are there any kind of big label games that you kind of are going to admit that you haven't played that people would go, "What?"
Yes, actually, quite a few.
Yes.
To my shame, actually.
Confession time. We'll do one each, okay? But you go first.
Okay. I have never played Lords of Waterdeep.
Ooh.
I know. Ooh, he says.
Isn't that the video that Steve just did?
It is. Exactly.
Oh my goodness.
I'm going to be cast out as a leper. That's it. That's my PhD career over now.
You'll just be known as Waterdeep Lewis from now on.
That'll be it. And the worst thing is, I really love worker placement. That's what makes it even worse. That's my sort of pet genre.
I just seen some people playing it the other week, and it looked kind of quite interesting. And then I thought, isn't this kind of dungeony? And then I looked over and went, oh, it's actually worker placement. I haven't played Catan.
Really? Steve's probably going to love you for that, actually, because he hates it.
I haven't played it. I've played the digital version. I've never played it.
All right. Did you play it on like a tablet or something?
I've got it on the phone, yeah.
Okay, yeah, because I downloaded it, because I've only played it once, and it was, it must have been sometime early last year, because Alora's got it, my girlfriend.
All right.
And she said, right, we're playing Catan, and we played a 6-player game. It turns out I won, which was nice. But I found it...
what'd you think?
Kind of... I don't know, I didn't hate it, but I found it quite dice... Obviously, it's dice-based, and I found basically playing the numbers and setting up according to where stats basically tell you to go really helped me. But I didn't find the harbours, the docks, particularly useful, because, I mean, we actually, as a group, started interacting quite well, so we were trading between players.
Yeah.
Now, I have heard a criticism of the game that a lot of people don't bother doing that, and everyone just sort of buggers off to the ports. But I didn't find that. But, I mean, I thought it was okay. I don't really get all the hype around it, because I think it was kind of... It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't brilliant. I mean, I wouldn't mind playing it again. But I wouldn't seek it out.
I'd probably, if somebody sat down and said, "You want a game?" I'd try it so I can experience it, so I can finally take it off my list of shame, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, well, as I say, it's not a bad game. I mean, I don't dislike it, but I can certainly see where Steve's coming from. I mean, I don't think he hates the game itself. I think he just hates what it stands for and what it represents. It's basically, the single-handed. This is the game that got everyone into board games.
Yeah,
but it didn't get him into board games at all. Which is why he's basically it didn't at all.
He's on a one-man mission to go around and say it was nothing like this at all. It was something completely different. Don't you say Catan.
Almost like that, but it wasn't. No, it was what got Steve really sort of into it over sort of 5, 6, 7 years ago was actually Carcassonne on the Xbox. And he's a big fan of all the Cthulhu mythos as well. So obviously all the Arkham stuff floating about has definitely piqued his interest, as I'm sure you've probably got from the podcast. Anytime there's a Cthulhu knocking about. Yeah, exactly.
Just a little bit. But how did you get, moving back then, so how did you get into the hobby then? What was... Because you said it's only been 12 months, didn't you? Or how long?
It's probably a little more than that.
Yeah.
Since my resurgence, maybe 18 months.
Yeah.
Or thereabouts. But I mean, even as a youngster, we played board games as a family. When I was sort of a wee nipper. Things like Monopoly and Game of Life, Trivial Pursuit, there's Game of Knowledge, all this, all the sort of the classic 80s and previous that everyone hates these days because it's just roll and move and everyone hates that. But it was fun. I mean, I've still got actually a few of them on my shelf now. If you've seen the shelfie I've posted on the Facebook board game group ages ago, there's like a row of about 6 or 7 really, really old board games in like one part of the Kallax, and some of those games are actually older than me. And there's one called The Business Game, which just sounds so boring. But originally it was called, it is The Business Game. That's what it's called. How exciting.
That sounds like punishment, isn't it? Now you've got an option here. You got 3 hours in your room, or we play The Business Game. Oh, please don't do that, Mummy.
Do you know what though? It's actually quite a good game.
I'm sure. I mean, this is the thing with childhood. I think the only ones that really kind of get me is Monopoly. But even Monopoly has a sense of skill once you kind of get past the randomness. And
there's a point, yeah. It's basically you just need to be a complete bastard for the entire game.
Exactly.
I'd like to trade you this, and this. Well, that's not happening.
Oh, yes,
Be gone, peasant.
I've got 5 houses on Whitechapel, so yes, you will be paying me all of your money. I know.
Indeed.
It's always good. But when would you say, what were the kind of the games, once you moved on from the stable stuff, what were the kind of the first games that you dabbled into then, would you say?
I think it's probably when I went to school. I mean, I didn't get into sort of modern board games, as you'd call it, until sort of 18 months or so ago. And maybe a little bit longer, because every now and again we've sort of played a game at John's over the last few years. But what really kicked me off on the tabletop stuff was all the Warhammer 40k and all the Games Workshop stuff when I was at school. So sort of between sort of 11 and 16, or even older. I saw the sixth formers at the time playing things like Man of War and all the epic 40k and even the Warhammer Fantasy Battles and stuff like that, and thought, that's for me. So I started playing all of that.
It's either that or I have to go and talk to like potentially girls.
Oh no, we don't want to do that. No, they were a foreign land back then.
They were totally.
But so that's kind of where I came from, and as a teenager, I spent an inordinate amount of money at Games Workshop. So I had.
How many did you have? How many figures?
Oh God, I had hundreds and hundreds. I had an entire Blood Angels army with tanks and Predator tank, Lehman Russ, a Rhino, a bunch of little sort of drop pod things. I had 3 of the 4 Greater Demons, and these were 40k scale Greater Demons. These were massive. I had a Gene Stealer Tyranid army because I had Space Hulk, like the original Space Hulk.
Oh
back
yeah,
in
yeah,
the day,
yeah.
I still had it a couple of years ago, but I managed to sell it.
Oh.
And you know what? These days I'm like, I really wish I hadn't, because it's a brilliant game, but it's full of Gene Stealers and hybrids and all this sort of stuff. So I loved Space Hulk. I still do, really.
I've got Advanced Space Crusade.
So did I.
I've got it.
And I really enjoyed it.
I've still got it, and it's got the Gene Stealers and the Tyranids, and also
That's brilliant.
confession time. I've got Space Crusade, Advanced Space Crusade, Advanced Hero Quest. I've got Hero Quest Advanced, which is the other way around. Yes, that was the one where you they released it very, very limited numbers, but it was essentially you brought in the Men of Arms figures.
Oh wow!
So you could bring them in. So I've got that. I'm trying to think what else I've got. I've got like a couple of the Hero Quest expansions as well, and they're all sitting quite safely somewhere safe. That's all I'm gonna say.
Not telling the family. No.
I think what else have I got? I think I've got Battle Masters as well.
Oh, fantastic! I am actually raging with jealousy now.
We're gonna have a retro night anyway at some point. So.
Oh, brilliant! I mean, I remember Advanced Space Crusade because it became Tyranid Attack.
Yes,
and this is how closely I followed Games Workshop. And I don't think Tyranid Attack was as good.
No,
because it took me ages to understand how Advanced Space Crusade worked. But once you get it, it's a really, really, really good game. You're sort of running around a Tyranid ship, sort of battering the crap out of its organs and whatever else happens to be running around.
Yeah, that was the best part about it. It was the start of the kind of the cardboard proper printed stock, and you weren't having to imagine anything. So it wasn't like an RPG where it's like I'm going to stick down tiles here, here, and here. You actually got the cardboard stock, lovely, bright, garish, illustrated, kind of different cut-out tiles, which were beautiful to look at because they were. It wasn't. Remember Space Crusade? How you had the dull metal grey kind of corridors.
Yeah. Oh, it was proper LSD induced. It was really bright and colourful.
It was fantastic. It was absolutely brilliant. It was absolutely.
No, I really enjoyed it because, as I say, it's almost like it's run from like this one sort of board basically with all these little counters on.
Yeah.
And you turn over the little cards. It gives you each encounter.
Yeah.
And you can make it as big or as small as you wanted.
Oh, it was completely customizable. It was a good fun, but then I didn't have many people to play with at the time, so the number of games that I got was very, very kind of small. So it hung around, and then it got put away, and then it's just kind of stayed around basically.
Yeah, I struggled with it like that as well.
Just try to find people to play, but I mean, so did you then? After your Games Workshop, and obviously after you went and spoke to somebody and had an intervention about buying so many Games Workshop things, did you just drift away from it? Because for a time I always thought kind of Games Workshop maybe lost their way a bit in terms of what they were trying to kind of offer people.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it was kind of twofold really. I mean, one. I mean, yeah, I agree with you that Games Workshop kind of went a bit weird for a while.
Yeah.
Once they started releasing, I think it was 3rd edition Warhammer 40k, which I never got. I got the 2nd edition, like the first box set.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I'd played like Rogue Trader and stuff in the shops, but I never actually bought it. I didn't have a bloody clue what was going on. It's just, they sort of walking around as an 11-year-old, go, right, roll this dice, put this here, right, he's dead, all that sort of stuff. And, these, like, sweaty teenagers telling you what's going on. I didn't have a clue, but... So once I got into it, it was good fun. But, I sort of left school, and then I went up to St Andrews to uni.
All right, okay.
So just up the road from you, yeah.
Just up the road from me, I know.
Aye. I was there for 9 years, so I know Fife very well. But whilst at uni, I didn't really do much of any of it. The occasional game now and again. And of course, there are a few people sort of walking around and, that do RPGs and that sort of side of things.
Yeah.
But at uni, it was very much sort of video games and drinking and fraternising more than anything else.
Yeah.
So I didn't do very much at uni at all, apart from computer games. But, I mean, during that, I played things like Baldur's Gate and... what else was out there? Those sorts of RPGs, and I really, really loved them. And that's pretty much where I grew my love of D&D from. Although I did play things like Eye of the Beholder as well, which I think was 1st edition, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that was... there was a big push, I think, at the time, because D&D went through there's always going to be like a core group of people that said, I have played D&D for the last 25, 30 years, and I've always played it. But then I think it was another one of these things that kind of was bubbling along, but then recently it's kind of gained a bit more momentum now. It's really kind of picking up. So I think they kind of brought in games like Eye of the Beholder to pretty much remind you, well, here's the computer version of this where you're not rolling dice or you're not preparing your character as much and things like that. And obviously that moved on to your more kind of your arcadey type games. So, so you're out in the barren wasteland. There is not a hint
known as the Kingdom of Five.
No, exactly. It's got a good chips.
It does.
You must have went
to Anstruther there.
You must have went to Anstruther and got yourself a couple of fish suppers.
I've been there many, many times. It's beautiful.
And there's two fish and chip shops. There's the famous one, and then there's the one that's about 300 or 400 yards along the road. And if the famous one is queued up, you're guaranteed you could always get chips from the smaller one at any time at all.
Oh, yeah. It's a good chippy, actually.
That was a very, very good chippy. So, you're out in Fife, the barren wasteland of the world, and then you're getting back into cardboard. So how did you get back into the hobby again?
Well, it was, as I say, it was only 18 months, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It was kind of a combination of Steve and my girlfriend, my good lady, because she's got Catan, so she's sort of played that before I had, and she's got a couple of other things. So I ended up playing that, and Steve and John I'd obviously played relatively regularly, and I got kind of stuck in there, and I started seeing this stuff and thinking, this looks quite interesting. Yeah. So about, I think it must have been 18 months, maybe 2 years ago, maybe not quite that long, that I ended sort of dipped my toe into the water of I think I got Dead of Winter was probably my first what you'd call modern board game.
That is a hell of a game. To get back into board games with, that is a granddaddy of all games. I mean,
it's brilliant. I really love it. I don't play it that often, sadly, but because it's quite tense and it's quite stressful actually. It's
quite tiring, isn't it? I mean, you have like
concentrate for so long.
You have like a 2.5 hour session of Dead of Winter, and you feel like you've gone through the kind of the stress of it all. Especially if you've got somebody who's decided to be clever and a bit of a betrayer.
Yes. You know, I've not actually played a game of Dead of Winter where there's been a betrayer.
Oh.
Rather bizarrely. We've just all got away with it. We've played one where we thought there was, but it turns out they weren't. They were just being a douchebag.
I just decided I'm not going to... I don't fancy giving stuff. No, I'm fine. You can all starve.
I'm good.
Cheers for that.
No. But it's. I think my modern love now has really quickly escalated after that, because then I started playing Robo Rally, and so Steve got me involved in the podcast and then I discovered Kickstarter, which
we can talk about Kickstarter. I think because if there's one thing you guys talk about on the podcast quite a few times, it's Kickstarter. And it seems that you have picked up a like for Kickstarter.
Yeah, that's one way of putting it. Yeah, I mean others may say a crippling financial addiction. Yeah, I actually, because in total I've now got, and this is since about April last year, so less than a year ago, I have now funded 16 board game projects.
Really?
Of which I have received 4. Now I'm due 2 or 3 in the next couple of weeks. I know. So basically, I'm going to receive at least one board game now between now and the end of 2017. At least one a month.
That's fantastic, isn't it?
That's how many I've got, which is great to look forward to. Yeah. But then you look at the amount of money I've actually spent on it and think, oh my god, I could have bought a car for that.
It's a surprise package through the mail, isn't it? Because
it is, yeah.
It's it can be quite easy just to go in and just say, well, that looks interesting, or there's been a bit of a kind of a bit of a buzz. I mean, is there anything you're looking at the moment on Kickstarter that you've thought, that looks really good, I might actually go for that?
There was actually, in fact, I actually chose to back, and then I sort of bailed out of, oh god, what's it called? Hang on, I'm going to have to have a look online now.
Don't say Gloomhaven.
No, I didn't. I'm actually really annoyed because I didn't know much of Kickstarter when Gloomhaven was funding, so thankfully I kind of avoided that. But I've made up for it with Deep Madness, which is going to be hefty. But yeah, I put a back down for The Shared Dream. I don't know if you've seen.
All right,
that,
okay, yeah.
Which is kind of Dreams and Magic RPG. And it sounds and looks really, really cool.
Yeah.
Kind of my cup of tea. But I thought I looked at it and went, and then I bailed out of it. But I mean, the project hasn't finished yet, so I might still dip my toe back in.
Right, okay.
But at the moment, there isn't actually, I think, fortunately for my bank account, a huge amount on Kickstarter that I'm particularly interested in.
Well, allow me as your potential dealer to maybe enlighten enlighten you. This is a trap. this is Admiral Akbar time. It's a trap. Exactly. Yeah, I think a couple that have piqued my interest. Well, we've mentioned Awesome, and I'm still insisting people have a look at it because it looks very, very cute. Have you seen GKR Heavy Hitters?
I have not. No.
It's Weta. As in the special effects guys that did Lord of the Rings. They've done a board game.
Sure.
They've only gone ahead and done a board game, so it's like a robot. It's basically giant robots fighting each other in a city.
No, I have seen this.
Yes.
Yes. No, I know what you mean. Yeah. Yes.
Because me and Matt Jarvis were talking about it the last episode that we did, and it's kind of like this looks. They're based in New Zealand, so it's the kind of the timescales where people are starting to kind of bump their gums about the fact there's no updates during the hours of 9 to 5, and people are having to remind them you're actually in New Zealand, so it's not gonna happen just yet. That's kind of it's just big, huge, giant robots. It's not big, huge, giant robots fighting monsters. Which, if they did a Pacific Rim board game, take my money now, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be pretty cool, actually.
Oh my goodness, we should do that.
That would be pretty good. Right,
okay,
we'll launch it next year.
Let's design that.
We've got dibs on the idea now if anyone's deciding to rip us off. So we've come up with it first.
We're just going to edit out this bit of the podcast. That's the way to do this. Let's have nobody listening. The other one I've seen, and I'm only mentioning this because it's by John Gilmore's involved. And it's Dinosaur Island.
I think I have seen that as well.
And it's basically build your own version of Jurassic Park. It's like we're building Jurassic Park, but we don't have the license to use the word Jurassic Park. But it is essentially building yourself a lovely little dinosaur island.
Well, okay.
So that looks like it's also interesting as well. I'm not going to give figures and stuff like that. I'll allow the people to have a look at them just now. And I'm not going to give figures because I'm not entirely sure when this episode is going to be going out as well. But it looks kind of interesting. It looks kind of cool as well. So we're keeping a good eye on it.
Sure.
I mean, we also spoke recently. We also had an interview with a guy from Elements, Justin as well. So.
Oh yes, of course. Yeah.
So we're taking a kind of a look at that. So there you go then, Andy. Because the back, it's enabling night.
The heavy hitters looks quite good. Yeah, basically, you've just hooked me again. You swine. You.
There you go. And there, look at the stretch goals just tumble.
No, it's not happening. No. No,
look,
it's all right.
I've got all the stuff.
Stop it.
Look,
you're a bad man.
All the stuff.
No, at the moment I'm actually waiting on. I've got this War of Mine on its way.
Oh, I so want that. I've heard you mention it, and it's almost like you're teasing me every single time you mention it on the podcast that you have this War of Mine coming along.
I do. I'm kind of annoyed, actually. I didn't back it slightly heavier than I did.
Yeah.
I mean, you're getting quite a lot in the box anyway.
Yeah, I saw that,
you get like 4 expansions and goodness knows what else. So, I mean, for the £58 that you back, you're getting tons in the box. But there's a few other bits and bobs I wouldn't mind getting, but it's a bit late now because it's basically on the boat. So, but it looks brilliant. And I don't know if you played the computer game as well.
It's they actually released the This War Is Mine, the little ones, was out in PlayStation Plus recently. So I've not had a chance to dive into that because I've been playing. To my shame, I've been playing Stardew Valley.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which is the kind of like it's almost like it's a little kind of farming game. Everybody who knows what Stardew Valley is knows that it's pretty much like it's just ridiculously very, very moresome to the point where all you're doing is you're getting up in the morning and watering some crops and then going for a wander in a village
or farm
and then something like that. Wandering about and then going back, and if your crops are ready, you harvest them, and if they're not, you're not. So it's just you can get a chicken coop, and then your hens will lay eggs, and then you have a mayonnaise machine, and you can make mayonnaise, and you can sell the mayonnaise, and you can do all different types of things, and it's just ridiculous because I've been putting down things like Overwatch and everything like that. To get a play.
Oh no! Keep me away from that.
It's just worth it. It's so fantastically lovely. I think the game, when everything's kind of dull and drab and grey, and Stardew Valley is just lovely, and that is the only video game I'm kind of mentioning, and it's the only one I'm kind of playing.
Sure.
Is there anything you're playing at the moment, board game wise? Then.
Yes, actually. It's kind of vaguely on the subject of Kickstarter as well.
Yes.
I recently received Martians: A Story of Civilization.
Oh, right, okay.
Which I guess is kind of I wouldn't really say a competitor to, but it's kind of along the same lines as Terraforming Mars, which I have to admit I haven't played. I mean, our regular sort of Tuesday night crowd have had it out a few times, and I've never actually got around to playing it.
I've seen it played. It was played on Friday night at the club when we were playing Viticulture, and the guys in the next table were playing Terraforming Mars, and said it was rather lovely.
Yes, I've heard nothing but good things about Terraforming Mars.
Yes, I've also heard it's incredibly difficult to get hold of as well, though.
Yeah,
at the moment.
It is. I think they're making another print run at the moment. I've seen videos and things, but goodness knows when and where we'll ever find one. But yeah, I'm not going to talk too much about Martians.
No, as we said.
For fear of ruining our own podcast.
Yes.
But suffice to say that it's actually quite good. I'm generally quite enjoying it. I've only played two full games of it so far, but there's so many different game modes of it because you can play solo, co-op, semi-co-op, and competitive. So there's loads of different ways to play it. It's basically worker placement, so obviously it falls into my sort of pet genre. But there's a lot in the box. There are a couple of issues with, I wouldn't say the game itself, but certainly the manual. That's tough going.
All right, is it not very well written, or?
It's probably one of the worst things I've ever read in my life.
Okay, though, that's let's just leave that at that then.
I mean, I'm sure we'll go into more detail.
I'm sure you'll go into a massive amount of detail in the actual podcast, and if you want to hear that, that'll be out probably recording in the next couple of weeks, and it's not on here, it's on Polyhedron Collider. There you go. There's
Indeed.
there's your
Thank you very much. But I've also got what did I get recently as well? I can talk actually about Ave Roma.
Yeah, because you mentioned that was one of your kind of, you were really excited about that kind of quite recently.
Now Steve and I and John did talk about it briefly in our sort of Christmas show.
Yes, you did.
Kind of, games that we really like and things we're looking forward to as well. So I can kind of get away with a bit more now because I think it's probably a bit late for us to talk about it on our podcast.
Yeah.
But I got Ave Roma as well through Kickstarter.
Right.
Oh God, it must be, I don't know, November time, maybe October time. Was it even sooner than that?
Was it a long time waiting for it?
No, actually. I backed it in, oh God, it must have been, I don't know, June last year, maybe May. But I got it in sort of September, late September, early October. So it was a really quick turnaround.
So is this the Ave Roma Premium Edition? It's like a circular kind of board.
Yes.
And it was by A Games.
Yes, yeah.
I'm on the
one.
Kickstarter page, actually. So, and it funded, it had a goal of €20,000 and it funded 3.5 times that. So that's pretty good. So there's you and another 1,100 people that got the game at the same time. So what's it about?
Yeah.
What's it all about?
Well, it's a medium heavy, if worker placement, if Board Game Geek is to be believed. I would say it's absolutely cranium breaking in its initial complexity. Just because there's a lot to get in your head to start with. I mean, it's like a lot of worker placement games. You kind of need to know everything before you start. Yeah. Which sort of does your head in. But then once you start to play it, it's actually quite fluid and really, really straightforward. And I really, really like it. I'm really glad I backed it. It's a fantastic wee game. And for a sort of a medium-heavy Euro, you can get through it in about an hour and a half, 2 hours. It's actually really quick. Because it scales really well for the number of players you've got. Yeah. So it scales from... Because one of the biggest problems I've found with a lot of worker placement games is the two-player version can almost end up like a race. Yes. And this, I mean, I know Euphoria's very guilty of this. Sorry, Jamie. But but it's not the only one. There's a few. I mean, I think worker placement games generally do suffer the two-player drag, as it were. You need at least three, really. Yeah. But Ave Roma gets round that by the way the worker placement mechanic works, because you start the game with 5 workers, each numbered 1 to 5. Mm-hmm. And you do your little round of placing your workers down in the various areas and getting your resource and doing whatever you do. But at the end of each round, you collect up workers, but not necessarily yours, because all the workers are all the same. They're all white. Yeah. Either discs in the normal game or pillars in this game. Uh-huh. And you can basically pick up whichever workers you want from a single area until you're up to 5 workers again. So you basically stack your deck in your favours. You can end up with like 4 3s and a 5, or 2 1s, 2 2s and a 3, or something like that. Because there's areas of the board where the number of the worker is restricted. So you're basically trying to sort of plan your next round. By getting the workers you want to affect the areas of the board that you want to affect. Okay. And the 2-player version, you end up playing with like a ghost player. So each player has a ghost player. The ghost players don't serve any purpose other than to give you more choice about when you pick your workers up at the end of the round. Yeah. Okay. Otherwise, you'd be really limited, and it works really, really well. Because there's so much going on in the game as well. It never feels like a race, because it's almost impossible to tell who's winning at any one point in time.
It's like other games you've been playing recently.
Aye.
But no, I mean, it looks... See, there's games like this that you just miss. And this is one of the things, as a quick aside, this kind of annoys me on Kickstarter, that you'll kind of always see the campaigns sometimes you'll see the campaigns for the bigger guys.
Yeah. I'm glad I found this, actually. It's a bit of a gem, because even at Essen, I think it was kind of swiftly dogpiled under all the bigger and better ones, like the Edge and all that sort of stuff that was showing off all its miniatures and all that sort of jazz. Mm-hmm. But it did get a look in, and I think Tom Vassell covered it in the Dice Tower, so it did get a bit of coverage. But I think it did get swamped slightly, which is a shame, because it's a really, really good game.
Yeah, you just wonder if something like this is ever going to reach kind of retail. Do you know what I mean? Because if it's ever going to have a kind of a separate retail release, if they're ever going to have enough money to... Well, I mean, they should. I mean, they triple funded, but again, it's like, did they make all... Are they going to be using that all up on kind of the stretch goal production? Are they not going to be making a lot of money kind of off the back of this? But we'll have to I guess we'll have
I
to
think
see.
they probably could, I think, because, I mean, this is the premium one. I think the intention is, if you're reading the rule book, that instead of using the wee pillars that they've got for the worker placements, they've actually just used wee discs for the normal version. So it shouldn't cost them as much. And then there's 5 expansions that came with the game for the Kickstarter, but obviously they won't be included in the base game either. And I have to admit, I haven't played any of the expansions yet. The game's complicated enough as it is. So I think there's definitely scope for them to do it. I reckon if they did produce it, it'd probably be of the order of about £40, I reckon.
Which is not... It's not bad. That's not... It's not brilliant.
They should charge. Whether they do or not, obviously, is another matter. But you do get a lot in the box, so it's definitely good value. And there's a lot of game for it. There's a lot of replayability, because no 2 games are going to be the same, because there's just so much going on. So I'd definitely thumbs up from me.
All right, okay.
Steve and I played it the first time ages ago when I first got it, and it did our heads in. I mean, we both walked away like we'd been absolutely just assaulted. It was ridiculous.
It does look like one of these things where you've got a big, huge circular game board where it looks like you've got cards, and then you've got kind of like points trackers, and then everybody's kind of like got a semi little arc where they can put more and more counters, and then you've got cards, and then you've got coins, and then you've got wooden markers, and you've got more cards, and you've got area tiles, and you've got, I mean, I can imagine that the actual instruction manual is going to be bad enough as it is.
It's actually really well written, to be fair. It's really clear. I say it takes you a bit of time to get your head round it, but every section of it is really well written. It's easy to find stuff in it, which really helps, because, I mean, it given the complexity of the game, I think they did obviously run the risk that if they didn't get the rulebook right, it would have been an absolute nightmare. But no, they've done really well with it, and I really do hope it does hit the shelves, because it's a very good worker placement game, in my humble opinion.
I mean, we'll have to see. I mean, there's so many decent games that you think, if they got a retail release, they would do kind of really, they would do kind of well if they got kind of picked up, and people end up, they sometimes disappear. They get like a one print, and then they're kind of gone. They're kind of gone forever and a day. I mean, I'm just having a look. I know there's been a few success stories that I've kind of had in the past, like Steampunk Rally, which is a lovely little game. Yeah, that's now kind of made commercially available. But then there's there's I guess there's games like Ophir, which I think you can buy through the website, but I don't think it's got a retail release. Isaac Childress' previous game, did you ever touch that, Forge War?
I've not played it. I've heard of it and I've seen it, but I've never actually played it.
That's very, very good, and it's very, very good at tackling the kind of the 2-player kind of question as well, because your worker placement, but then you're turning your workers into fighters, so you're basically producing the raw material. It's like a couple of different mini games where you're essentially kind of, this is me getting my resources, this is me arming my heroes, and then my heroes, based on them having the right resources, can go ahead and they can complete quests. So for all you people who are crying over the fact you haven't got Gloomhaven and who isn't, I think I've seen another Kickstarter for these guys. I think I've already said that they're going to have to do another Kickstarter to get another print, so that's interesting. I mean, it's a
big box.
That's interesting.
It's about the size of my sofa. It's ridiculous. Annoyingly, though, there's nobody in my sort of regular sort of Worcester game group that has actually backed it. So we're all sort of sat there. There's like 15, 20 of us thinking, oh, for God's sake.
It's like,
nobody backed this.
Who's going to find out who backed it? Or it's worse, they'd go do a kind of interrogation and find out who backed it but dropped out. I did.
Oh, did you?
Yes.
Oh no! Oh, you must be kicking yourself.
I kind of maybe am, and I'm kind of maybe not, because I guess this takes us on to, there are kind of games that I have received which I still haven't played.
Yes.
It's like, we've had our first confession, which is games that we should really be playing if we're doing a podcast about board games.
Oh, totally, yeah.
But the second one is games that we have that have been staring at us for a long time that we should have actually played by now.
Yes.
Now, I'm going to go first with this one.
Okay.
And I'm going to say Imperial Assault.
Oh, good lord. Yes. I haven't actually played that, but I've seen it played.
I haven't actually played that, and I see it every time I open my gaming cupboard.
You've got it sat on your shelf.
It's actually sat on the shelf, and it's one of these things where do you know what the issue is? Is that for a while, me and Colin and the fantastic Mr. Leo, who does all the art and logo work for us, we played Descent. And
yes.
we thought, well, Descent, that'll be fantastic. And kind of looking around for Descent, we got so far into the campaign, and then we kind of we stepped away because we thought, well, time was precious and we wanted to play other games. So then I thought, well, Imperial Assault, that looks like it's interesting. It's very Star Wars. I hadn't too long ago kind of been kind of, I guess, introduced to the wonder that was X-Wing, and I thought, well, if I can get some kind of ground-based action, then this would be fine. So at the time, I don't know if it was I got lucky, there was some kind of sale going on, but I got it for really, really next to nothing.
Jamming it.
And then I got it, and it's been sitting it's been sitting there. Now, if you want
taunting you.
Okay, well, as the confessions continue, if you look at the We're Not Wizards website and the header banner on it, and there's a picture of Imperial Assault on the right hand side, and it's sitting above Descent. Yeah. It's moved, but it's moved to the bottom of the pile. so it's now pinned.
Is this basically just your self-relegation? You've just realised, I'm not going to play that anytime soon.
Oh, do you know what? It's a nice strong box, so it can take the weight.
Aye, yeah. FFG make a good box. So that's something they do.
I mean, I think I did have Rivet Wars there for a while, and unfortunately, Rivet Wars, when I took the box out, it got caught in the corner, and there was a little bit of stress caused on it, which kind of made me cry. So yeah, Imperial Assault. Not played it.
Oh dear,
Not played it.
I mean, just slightly on the subject, that I know Steve's got Imperial Assault. I know he's played it a few times.
Yeah.
But I know, obviously, I've got Doom, which I'm told is very similar. So, but a bit simpler.
Yeah.
Which I really enjoy, actually. I think Doom's a brilliant game.
How did the mechanics work out? Because if I remember, one of the first conversations we ever had was about Doom being announced, and the mechanics. It was maybe Steve that was, because it was like, what we were worried about was it mimicking the actual video game, in the sense that once you attack somebody and you got them down to a certain health, you could kind of execute them, kind of thing.
Yeah, you get what's called a glory kill, which is from the
video game. Yeah,
basically, the demons kind of staggering. They basically become what's called staggered. So the demons start sort of flickering orange, and you basically walk up to them and sort of punch them in whatever orifice you choose,
all right,
and sort of rip something off them and beat them up.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
The way they do that in the board game is that you basically just move into their space, and it's a kind of an instant frag.
Oh.
And then you get a card, so it's like a glory kill card, which represents pretty much what happens in the computer game. So usually what happens if you glory kill someone, it spawns a bunch of health, so you regenerate a bit of your health, and it's usually a bunch of ammo as well. Whereas in the board game, the glory kill cards give you like a slight, short burst of energy, or give you extra movement, or an additional sort of one shot action or something like that. So it's very much in the spirit of the computer game, and I think they've done really well in capturing the video and put it into cardboard form, which I quite like. The problem I found with Doom is that it's a pain in the arse to set up. It's so faffy.
Is it?
Yeah,
I'm surprised.
So many counters.
I suppose that's the same with Descent as well, because we actually needed to use Hugo's Amazing Tape, which I don't know if you're aware of, but it's basically cellophane but costs an absolute fortune. And what it is it's essentially just kind of thick cling film, which comes in different colours. And what you do is you cut it into strips, and you can wrap it around you can wrap it around cards. And what it does is it keeps them together, so it's cool.
And it sticks to itself, doesn't it?
But what we had to do with Descent was, in order to stop the setup time with Descent, which was frankly ridiculous, we wrapped everything round in Hugo's amazing tape and kind of kept them, and even took photographs of the board so we could remember what we were doing and what we were playing. So that was kind of like the other thing. But did you say have you played Doom then a couple of times? Have you... Or what?
Oh, I've got it. I own it. It's brilliant. I love it.
So what have
I've played? I played with other people. I've played through it on my own a couple of times.
All right, okay.
Oh yeah, I really enjoy it. Actually, it's a really good game. It's slightly biased, I think, towards the Marines.
Yeah.
Certainly in the earlier missions, but once you get towards the end, I mean, I've played one game because Luke from Broken Meeple and I were convinced that it was too weighted towards the Marines, so I picked a mission sort of slightly further on through the campaign.
Did you
played a 4-player Marine game, and honestly, the Marines didn't even get out the first room. They got absolutely murdered. So I think that's that theory put to bed. So
there you go. So
didn't even get a look in.
So confession time. What have you got sitting on the shelf that you haven't played?
Actually, still on the subject of FFG, I have.
Oh, here we go.
I bought this probably about 8 or 9 months ago.
Yeah.
Because it was sat in my sort of the local cheap game shop in Worcester, and I thought, I've had my eye on it for a while. I bought Twilight Imperium with both expansions. And they are still sat on my shelf and remain unplayed. I've played, trying to understand the rules, so like on my own, but I've never got past like more than one round because it's just so mind-meltingly complicated. It's impossible for one brain to keep track of 4 or 5 players. So I have not played Twilight Imperium.
I don't know if that makes you a bad person or if that makes a person that's willing that time is precious to them, because every time I've heard somebody speaking about Twilight Imperium, it is along the same lines as things like Eclipse, which I've been hearing a lot of recently, that it takes an absolute bloody age to play kind of Twilight Imperium.
Eclipse isn't that bad. But yeah, Twilight apparently takes, like 8 hours. So basically it's Steve and I came up with a theory, actually. I don't know if you remember from the podcast on New Angeles that FFG games scale with the size of box. So the wee boxes take about 20 minutes, and then there's like the slightly bigger boxes, and they take about an hour or 2.
That works very very well.
Fury of Dracula takes like 4 hours, and then you got the TI size of stuff, or the big box Mansions of Madness, and you basically they take like 4, 5, 6 hours, and then Twilight Imperium sort of size is like basically your weekend is hours.
It's just I can't imagine having... Do you know what? I can't imagine having the time or having the inclination to sit down and play it. And I'm sure it's absolutely fantastic. And I'm sure the internet will tell us otherwise when this episode goes out. What are you calling yourself, a board gamer? You haven't even played Catan properly.
Oh, God.
What are you saying? It's like, okay, well, Twilight Imperium, sounds to me like it's like going to work.
See, I really like big, complicated games. That's the thing. My girlfriend refuses to play it. I mean, she's played Eclipse.
Yeah.
And Eclipse is a lot shorter. I mean, it's not a short game. It's like 3-4 hours.
Yeah,
so it's, it's an afternoon. But she's not. We played Fury of Dracula, and we started at something like 8 o'clock at night. And we were still playing at 1 o'clock in the morning. At which point she'd made a mistake, and there's rules to cover the mistakes, and basically she got screwed over and almost flipped the table.
It's just like that. It's past the point of tiredness.
That's it. So she's not a fan of long games, which I can see the point. It's just concentrating for that long is very tiring. But I really like it, which is why I'm really keen to play TI. But I know John and me and Steve were going to try and play it over Christmas because we're off for sort of 10 days or so between the sort of Christmas and New Year. And unfortunately, I mean, those two decided to get Galloping Knobrot and both got ill over Christmas. So
Galloping Knobrot. This is like a Terry Pratchett one. The best one I ever heard was, he's got Licky End.
Oh, that's
That
grim.
just sounds amazing. What's Gavin got? Gavin's got Licky End, and he's also got Scruffles as well.
Oh no, Scruffle just sounds wrong as well.
Just sounds very, very.
But yeah, they got ill, so we couldn't play it, and so it has sat and remained unplayed for. God, honestly, it must be the best part of 9 months now. Because it's an investment as well. Because I think I've got
it raises in value.
This is the thing. It's not a cheap game. No. I mean, you get a lot for the money. It's a good value game, but. It's, the base game's like 65 odd quid, and then you got the 2 expansions on top. So I spent quite a bit of money on this thing, and it's just sat on the shelf mocking me.
So so just as a side question, then, you being new to the hobby, and you obviously, what's the storage space situation like? I mean, are you getting to the point now where you're having to move essential items out of normal cupboards in order to fit games in, or do you just have them on an open shelf kind of thing? I mean, that's what I said. Are your games kind of sitting there for everybody to see, or are they kept in a cupboard or under the bed like me?
Well, it's funny you should ask that, because a few weeks ago I did get to the point where I'd keep all my board games in a cupboard. So there's a big shelf in my sort of I would say my game room, where I got my guitars and my aquarium and big table and stuff.
Sounds like a proper man pad that you've got going on.
Oh, it's brilliant. So in the lounge we've got the PC and this sort of huge telly and all the PlayStation and stuff, and then like the other room is it's like games and guitars and aquarium and big table and stuff. So it's proper bachelor pad stuff. Apparently one of my sort of female friends came around one day and said, "You can tell a man lives here."
Oh, come on. But do you know why? Because it was clean and tidy, and I bet you the dishes were put away.
Exactly, that's it. Lads get a bad rap for this, but I know from university, women are the most messy, untidy, scruffy, unkept individuals.
You know,
it's just ridiculous.
I'm just saying.
I had a cupboard that all my stuff was in, so there's a big shelf in sort of the middle of the cupboard, and it was starting to bow under the weight of all this stuff. And I'd literally run out of room, so a few weeks ago, I was off to IKEA for a couple of kayaks.
So you're all sorted out now?
I am. So now they're all on display in my spare room. I've had to reorganise and put my my guitar amp into the cupboard instead. You're
just bragging now. It's like, that's what I do, is I either play board games, or I'm going to play some video games, or I might just sit down with some guitar tab and learn a couple of songs. Such is the life of Andy.
Although I haven't actually played the guitar properly for about a year.
Oh, well, there you go.
I picked it up a few weeks ago, and oh my god, you can tell. I mean, I was never that good to start with, and it was just recognisable. I think is about as good as I got.
Have you seen the Mechs and Minions box?
I haven't actually. I know Steve's got it, but I wasn't around for whatever reason when him and John played it. And Steve nearly almost didn't get it. If you remember that podcast where he explained he basically left it on the train just before Christmas.
Just absolutely. I was like, part of me was like, that's the funniest thing I've ever heard. Part of me was also, that's also potentially the saddest thing I've ever heard. Yeah, but the thing was, the fact was the station, the guy in Lost Property saying, "Oh, some kid's going to be very lucky for Christmas." Because Steve, basically, for everybody that's listening, is that Steve got Mechs and Minions and ended up leaving it on the train and ended up having to go back to try and get it from the Lost Property office. And he rocked up to the Lost Property office, and luckily they had it after he phoned up and they said, yeah, it was back here. So he went along to the Lost Property office, and there was 2 guys behind the counter, and one of them said, "Oh, some boy's going to be very, very lucky for Christmas." And apparently the other guy turned around and said, "Nah, it's for him."
Aye, that's it. That's his.
And I just thought that's so brilliant. That was some guy in the know. It was like giving him the Fight Club, the Fight Club kind of wink.
Yeah, you just nod.
Kind of like that.
That's it.
Yes, you know.
But I haven't actually seen the box, but I understand it's a bit large.
It's potentially take 2 Imperial Assault boxes and lay them side by side, and you've kind of got the length of the Mechs and Minions box. I was shown, because Colin was round on Saturday with Stuart, and we were playing Scythe, which we'll save for another time, but because we decided to let's play some more Scythe. But I showed him the box, and I says, "Here, have a lift of this," and it's heavy. The guy that distributes the Mechs versus Minions boxes, you don't want to mess with him because that guy's built.
He can lift a pallet on his own.
A pallet. I mean, if you're doing this, it's some size of box, and it's really, really well put together. I mean, I'm hoping that we'll do an episode on it over the next couple of months, but I don't think I've seen a board game as much care and attention to how the game is packaged up and presenting itself and putting itself together. I mean, the fact that it's like that in the first place, and the fact I'm commenting on how that is just now, it's just... Somebody has said, let's make a board game and let's make it pieces. And you sometimes get the feeling with Fantasy Flight that what they do is, let's get the board game, let's get the pieces, and then let's just shove it in our trench box kind of thing. Whereas they've actually sat down and went, okay, how do we make this as easy an experience as possible for people to experience it kind of thing. So they've actually got plastic moulded trays, they've got lovely little compartments, they've got little hidden bits. It's just like, it's like going through Thornton's Continental but the double layer.
It's funny actually because John and Steve basically have said the same thing, not the Thornton's bit, but they've thought of everything. It's brilliant.
It's just like that is basically what it is. You're kind of going through and you're saying, ooh, and then you go, ah, and then you go, ooh, and then you go,
and then you get the coffee one.
And then, I don't mind the coffee one.
It's one of those weird ones.
It's the strawberry ones I'm not a big fan of. They're just a bit too...
I find they're too sweet. They're a bit...
It's like, how much sugar? Could you get any more sugar in this chocolate? So welcome to We're Not Chocolatiers. But Mechs and Minions, that's another one that I haven't managed to get to the table. There are a few, but me and Colin are working through them as quickly as possible. And there is going to be a lot of... we've managed to rattle through a few games of late. The other game I want to play, which I'm going to mention quickly, is the Final Fantasy card game, which I managed to get a hold of 2 packs, which looks very, very interesting. I'm just wondering how it's going to play. I've still not played Magic, Brian, but we'll see,
Okay. I mean, I never got into Final Fantasy. I have to admit, I played FF7 on the PlayStation back in the day, and it just didn't grab me. I just don't get what all the fuss is about at all.
I'll tell you, there'll be people on Twitter.
I know there's going to be people pounding their keyboards so it rains Cheeto dust at this point.
On the 20th anniversary of Final Fantasy VII. I said that Final Fantasy goes downhill after the title screen. I didn't realize I'd said that on the anniversary of Final Fantasy VII, and then I went on to say, I don't understand it. Final Fantasy VII is blocky nonsense. Why do you all love it so much? And that also got a bit of ire my way. The card game seems quite interesting though, because it seems to be kind of like a mixture of kind of like maybe Magic with a little bit of Pokemon, with a little bit of Yu-Gi-Oh, with a little bit of there's Final Fantasy characters in here. So we'll see.
You've just listed 4 things that I can't stand. Well, I think that's going to be that's the game I'm going to have to put into the box of no for me.
Nah, exactly. The only thing I ever don't like about card games is when they introduce a mechanic so that they're not like the mainstays. Do you know what I mean? When they kind of like introduce something slightly different and they say, okay, basically our main game is you need to get energy in order to be able to build up an army, in order to be able to attack. But you have these 4 cards that if you draw them, then you have to wait a turn and a half before you can use anything else. So, I mean, there's always something that can be a bit of a pain in the butt. But
yes.
Moving on, as I say, I mean, the future thing is there anything that you are looking forward to in 2017? You've done your show on it, but for you, because I know that, just like me now, Steve doesn't let you always get a word in edgeways.
I think that's the problem. Is he does. I mean, the amount of stuff on the cutting room floor, I think, is probably going to be surprising. The amount of crap he cuts out from me just because I don't shut up.
You'll be delighted to know that I have neither the kind of the gumption or the skill to do as much editing as Steve does on the podcast. So what I'll be doing is I'll be basically taking it from the moment we did our clap. I'll be sticking some music on the end and the beginning, and then I'll be getting some show notes together and making it go live, and that's as far.
Job done.
Job done.
That'll do.
Job done, and then sit and cry and go, why have we only got so many listeners? It's because you're not professional enough.
Fine.
But no, I mean, what else have you got? Kind of, is it in the anticipation pipeline?
Yeah, I mean, I'd go back to my Kickstarter list really here. I mean, there's I mean, we were talking about big box games there with Gloomhaven and Mechs vs. Minions.
Yes.
I mean, I mentioned earlier on I've got Deep Madness that I've funded.
Yes.
And not just funded, I think, self-funded the entire project looking at the money I've thrown at it. But I mean, that's not going to come in until November, so I've got a hell of a long wait for that. But I mean, it does look amazing. So it's Lovecraftian inspired. It's not actually Cthulhu or anything, but it's kind of it's almost like Arkham at the bottom of the ocean. So it's like an underwater sort of sea base, and things go rapidly base over apex.
That's an interesting way. Wow, this looks like.
And then you get all these beasties running around, and it looks superb. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'm kind of hoping that it's not crap. I'm sure it won't be, given the amount of hype and press that it's receiving and the amount of effort the guys seem to be putting into it. So I am looking forward to that.
163 miniatures. I'm just on the Kickstarter campaign just now.
Oh, yeah.
It looks massive.
It's huge. And I've covered both expansions and the additional Epic Monsters thing as well.
I don't want to even go there. I'm not going to question you on this. This is something that you've done yourself. I can't completely. It's how much for that?
Don't ask.
I can't even publicly say this. So this is ridiculous,
No.
Andy.
No, it's a huge amount of money.
It is a huge. It's not. It's fine.
Oh, I know. People have put in like £600 or £700 into the Edge, and it's nowhere near that.
Nah,
so,
that's just crazy.
It'll be good. I just hope I get a lot of play out of it. But there is another one actually that I am really looking forward to, and I don't think anyone's ever heard of it or covered it at all. So I'm kind of sort of almost like a self-proclamated patron saint of this game, and trying to give it a bit of coverage actually. So I'm using you as a lever here.
We'll just do that.
It's a game called Dream Wars.
Okay.
Yeah, you see, even you've not heard of it. Which is a steampunk horror board game. It's another Kickstarter. It's due out in a couple of months' time. But I really have a thing for steampunk. I really, really like it and really enjoy the idea of steampunk. So when I found sort of steampunk horror board, and I really like horror, so it's like, well, that's ticking all the boxes. That's a no-brainer. Job done. So I am looking forward to that.
I'm just having a look just now. It is done. I'm just having a look. Dream Wars Steampunk Horror.
That's the one.
A game for 1 to 8 players. Is that Antonio Scaccino?
That's the one.
And when is it out?
Well, it says it's due in June, but according to all of the updates and stuff we have on the project, they are slightly ahead of schedule. So we might see it in May, but I'm not holding my breath, because a lot of the miniatures and stuff are all done by now, and a lot of the game is. They're just basically putting it all together and printing it and making sure everything's okay at the moment. So, but they do say, the last 10% always takes 90% of the time.
Yeah.
So they're basically on track, I think, is the short answer. And it's due in June, which I think they'll hit. So
cool.
Watch this space.
Well, I'm sure you'll be talking about it on the Polyhedron Collider podcast.
I'm sure we will.
The only one I'm looking at, there's two I'm looking forward to, and I've mentioned them enough. Charterstone.
Yes.
Please.
Yes. I share your enthusiasm for that.
Thank you very much. I would be liking to look into a legacy game, because I've not got a legacy game, so I wouldn't. And I've been I kind of I play Pandemic Legacy kind of vicariously through other people and listening to their stories while never actually knowing the details of the game themselves, except people going, this game is so good, everybody says it's so very, very good. I might have to pick up a season, but then it's the time commitment.
It is. I mean, we started playing Season 1, me, Steve and John, literally about a year ago today, February last year. And it represents sort of 12 months of the year, and we've got as far as I think we finished June, maybe July, and that's a year ago. So we've played basically something like 8 games of it now. Because what we used to do was play a game of Pandemic Legacy and then record a podcast, but we've kind of got out of that habit now. And obviously, with Steve having moved, it's a bit more difficult.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just sort of sat on the shelf now. But it's really good. I mean, I really like Pandemic anyway. I've got it in a couple of expansions. And I really like Pandemic. It's a very good, very smooth, very scalable game.
It was the first game my kids ever played.
Oh, brilliant.
So
you got them in on a good one then. In fact, I think Pandemic was probably one of the first games I got after Dead of Winter, actually, thinking just back on how I got into all this stuff. But I've since bought a couple of the expansions, so the On the Brink and the In the Lab, and there's a couple of mechanics from that in Legacy.
Oh, right, okay.
But Legacy is just so tense. The last couple of months that we've played, it's honestly we've walked away stressed. It's been just
let's have a nice relaxing board game night.
Oh God, it was horrific. It just gets to the point now because there's so much happened in the game, and obviously there's so many things that have been sort of going on and have kept going on that keeping track of it all is quite difficult.
Yeah.
Although it does obviously make it easy with all the way you affect the game in a permanent manner. But I think the last 2 or 3 games have literally come down to the last turn. That you basically were either going to win the game or we're going to lose it spectacularly. And there's no middle ground. It's just either all in or all dead. It's really, really good, but it's so stressful. Yeah, we're all having a nice calming cup of herbal tea afterwards just to settle down.
Like get sit around with some whale music and sit on my yoga cushion.
Yeah, playing sort of little panpipe ditties.
Get into my immersion tank and just think that everything is okay. I would. It's not that, because then you would hear them kind of talking to you. There's a plague. I speak whale.
It is worth playing. I think it's definitely.
I know.
I mean, it's come down a lot in price as well. So it's definitely worth getting hold of.
I know, and then it's just a case of finding people. Because me and Colin will play it, but then it's the commitment to finding other people to play it as well. I might need to actually persuade my wife to play board games, which
does she not? Oh dear, does she look at you with scorn and hatred?
Not exactly.
On cardboard?
No, not kind of scorn. Not hatred either. But just
good.
Just a kind of, what's the point of that? kind of thing. What are you doing?
Oh, no.
Why is that exciting? Explain to me why this is good fun, kind of thing. So, but we'll get around there. I'm thinking of potentially kind of like try to build her up. She did, in all fairness, me and this is completely nothing to do with board games at all, that I got, my son got Lego Dimensions, and we've kind of moved from the attitude of you'll not be playing that game very, very much, to me coming home the other day to him to the PlayStation 4 being off and my son proclaiming that him and Mummy just went through a couple of levels and got some gold bricks, and I just looked at him and went, really?
Hang on.
What's going on here? You've been so I'm kind of it's a work. I guess as we would call on the show, it's a work in progress.
Work in progress,
kind of thing, just to see how we get on. But I'm gonna try. I think if I say, it's an anniversary up soon, so if I say, do you fancy a game of Love Letter, she'll probably slack me and go, you filthy man. We'll just have to see how it goes, basically.
Shy burns, then it gets sweeties.
Exactly, that's it. Come here, darling. Come here, darling. Give us a cuddle. It's no my birthday. No, I mean, we'll see. I mean, it's, as I say, it's a work in progress. I'm hoping by maybe 2018 that we might have played played something. But my danger is that she gets involved in it, becomes very, very good, and then I end up moving away from stuff because it'll be like, I don't want to play this with you anymore because you keep beating me. So we'll see.
Oh, yeah.
We shall see. But it's all good. And Jake's been playing. Jake's played King of Tokyo, so he's my little boy. So him and his older brother and sister, he rolled the dice while they played King of Tokyo. So he loved that. He thought that was damn good fun, kind of doing that.
Yeah,
but
I've heard that's a good game for the nippers.
It's easy. The King, surprisingly enough, King of New York is a lot more complicated, but King of Tokyo is fantastic fun. Just to kind of the simple kind of Yahtzee mechanics. So it's kind of good fun. The only other game that I'm gonna mention is, and I'm only excited because I am a video game nerd thing, is Seventh Cross, which is level 99 games, which is all about Castlevania. It's a kind of a board game. It's by the boys that did Pixel Tactics.
Okay, yeah, sure. No, Castlevania, obviously that's harking back to my previous video game life.
Yeah, this little boy's cup of joy is overflowing. Just knowing that's potentially in the mix, so we're kind of having a look, but we'll see, because things crop up all the time, especially on kind of like your Kickstarter and stuff like that. So we'll be kind of paying attention. But I mean, there'll be a couple of places for you good listeners that you can keep an eye on what's happening in the board game world. Now, one of them is to head over to the ramshackled side of the street. The dark side of the street. But this is, I don't know. This is what I was mentioned this kind of before about the community. The fact is that, we're on different podcasts, and I'm like saying, well, come on board, and you say, well, come on board, and it's like, kind of, there's no kind of, I'm not having them on because they're a rival. It's like we record for 1 hour. It's like people have got an hour. There's no kind of competition kind of thing, You're obviously better than us, but we just, we're working hard.
I wouldn't go that far.
I don't know.
We're different.
I don't know what the next level down from ramshackled is. Do you know what I mean? The slightly just a bit, I don't know, the pasty-faced kind of pretender, I guess, but we don't know. Anyway, if people want to find you, I guess, we've mentioned, but where can we find you?
You can find us on www.polyhedroncollider.com.
Okay.
You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Polyhedron Collider.
Yes.
You can find us on Twitter at Polyhedron Collider. You can find me on Twitter at SonicH with a 0, not an O, because I'm dare to be different.
And also because Sonic H was taken up, wasn't it?
Yes, they wouldn't let me have it. I don't think it was taken. I think Sega must have right. Like dibs on it or something.
Just you're not allowed to put anything like that, just in case you infringe their copyright.
Yeah, probably. I suspect that's what it was. Because it never said it was taken. It just said, "Nah, you're not having it." What? Hang on.
Move along.
And yeah, you can. John's on Twitter as well at John_Cage.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can find all of us on the various social media. We do have a Board Game Geek. What's it called?
It's a clan or a forum or something like that.
Yeah,
we're not. As I say, we're just a level below you, so we haven't even thought about that kind of stuff. I'm still trying to figure out Board Game Geek.
Oh, it's a nightmare. It's almost like a website of two halves, isn't it?
It kind of reads
so
like
strange.
It kind of reads like really old, bad fantasy flight instructions.
It does. It's so bad. It's like it was designed in the 1980s, and then it had an upgrade a few years ago to make it look like it was designed in the 1990s. So
that's just, and then the latest one looks like they've just picked. It's like pick a skin. It's like from a selection of skins, and they've went, do we go for the $19 one or do we go for the $15 one? It's like, go for the $15 one. No one will know what it is.
15, yeah.
And they've just kind of trackled on with that.
I mean, it's a gold mine of information, but finding it is just I really struggle navigating it.
I just give it up. I even struggle trying to find like our stuff on it. I know
Yeah.
you need to.
No,
do,
it's the same for
Oh,
us.
you just need to search. I'm trying to search. We're not, and it's like, no. Do you mean werewolf? No, I don't mean werewolf. I don't mean one night. Just stop putting me towards that flipping game.
Do you know what? Steve posted my Ave Roma review on there. It must have been last week sometime. So I know it's there. Finding it, it's just a night. I know it's there. I wrote the bloody
I
thing.
know.
Where is it?
I'd like to submit this, please. No, you can't. What do you mean? Oh, you just can't. So yeah, I think you actually need to have a bit of a geek. I mean, I really enjoy your show. I enjoy the podcast. I do read your reviews. You put some excellent content out there. If you're listening to us, there's no reason why you can't tune into Polyhedron Collider, because they're good people and they do excellent work. Thank you for coming on, Andy. I've really
well, thank you for having me. It's been good fun. I've really enjoyed it.
And
we've learned a little bit more about each other.
It's always good. It's always good.
Yeah, we'll have to return the favour. Get you on.
I don't know if Steve will let me on.
I'm sure he will. We'll sweet
happens.
talk him. It's fine.
But if you want to keep up with what we are doing, then we have got our website, which is we'renotwizards.com or .co.uk. We have got Twitter, which is We're Not Wizards. We've got Facebook, which is We're Not Wizards. We're on Instagram, which is We're Not Wizards. We have started putting our old podcast episodes on YouTube as well. So if you go to YouTube and you search We're Not Wizards podcast, then you will find the first 4 episodes up there already. And there's also the latest episode with Matt Jarvis from Tabletop Gaming Magazine as well, who was a fantastic guest and he was just a top guy to speak to.
Indeed.
There you go. Now, there are a couple of things left to do. The first thing, as always, is to remember that we are many things, but we're not wizards.
No.
Definitely not.
No.
2 worlds collide. Two podcasts enter, 1 podcast leaves.
Indeed.
It's like
I think you've got this one.
Mad Max.
We'll
see.
1 of 3.
And the second thing is to say goodbye to all you lovely people out there. So it is a goodbye from Andy.
And it's a goodbye from Richard.
Remember, stay safe, roll 6s, and it's perfectly acceptable for you to go away and check out other people's podcasts. But until next time, goodbye.
Goodbye.